Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Reconnect conference. Our first webinar panel discussion is on how destinations are preparing to restart tourism. And moderating the panel will be Dr. Subhash Goyal, a Hora Gold medalist from Sri Ram College of Commerce, member of the National Tourism Advisory Council, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. He's also the chairman of Stick Travel Group, one of India's biggest B2B travel groups with branch in all major cities of India, representing some of the world's best brands like United Airlines, Ethiopian Airlines, Air China, Sri Lankan Airlines, Ukraine International Airlines, Myanmar Airways. Uh, he has been a part of the Federation of Associations in India, Tourism and Hospitality. Mr. Goel, over to you for the panel. Thank you so much.
Presentation made by FAITH, which is the Federation of Associations of Tourism and Hospitality. We have all the 10 associations, tour operators, travel agents, hoteliers, restaurant owners, adventure operators, domestic operators. So this association made a representation that anyone traveling with a negative vaccine, there should be, no quarantine. So if you have 96 hours before negative vaccine, there is no quarantine in India, except home quarantine, which is you can do. And also earlier in the states, every state government, because we are a federal country, had its own quarantine rules. But now I think the government has given a directive that unless it is a red zone, there has to be, if people traveling with negative quarantine vaccine, there should be no. And India was also one of the first countries to, I mean, the major airports, not all the airports, where thermal scanning, and now we have started in the metro airports, rapid testing also. So if anyone reaches India without proper vaccine, uh, and we have the website, you can go on to the Airport Authority GMR or the GVK or the Airport Authority website and register yourself so that you have a hassle-free exit at the airport. So, friends, we have experts from Australia, Singapore, Japan, and Azerbaijan with us. So, I think we'll start with Nishant from Australian Tourism Australia. Well, Nishant has a very 2 days, two decades experience. Well, he joined Tourism Australia a decade ago, and after his joining, I think under his leadership, arrivals from India to Australia have gone more than tripled, and in the last decade, to reach 400,000. And he has been instrumental in strengthening people to people links between the two countries. Hailed as a market leader and voted amongst the top 30 CMOs of India in the Internet Mobile Association of India in 2019, Nishant is often invited to speak in various meetings and tourism conclaves. Nishant enjoys playing professional cricket on every weekend and searching for new food hounds. Uh, he's always best. He knows the best places for food. Nishant works for a country that is passionate about cricket and food, as he is. So thank you, Nishant, for joining us. I think we'll keep the first round limited to between 5 and 7 minutes, and we will like to focus on
Australia by each country. What I believe is that each country has adopted a particular approach, and there are two approaches, that every country is trying to navigate through. The first being the fact that countries like Australia or New Zealand or China has gone ahead and followed this zero COVID or a COVID-free approach where they want to just defeat the virus. They don't want to have a single case in their country. So that's the first approach. And the second approach is what countries like India, Brazil, United States have been following, where we are trying to live with the virus and we're trying to aim for something called as herd immunity, which will achieve at some point of time, and then maybe open up borders gradually as we also have some of the lockdown and unlock measures at the same time. Now, Australia had started this, mission of defeating virus way back in, March. Tourism attractions in all states except Victoria are open, and people can actually participate in these activities. Having said that, interstate travel, travel between two states in Australia is restricted until December. No, none of the Australian citizens are allowed to travel overseas again, if they are on compelling and compassionate grounds, and Australia will also probably open or think about opening borders for international tourists in the month of December. So, because they've adopted this approach of having defeating the virus and having like a zero COVID cases in the country, they are going to reevaluate and reassess the situation in the month of December. Whether to open the borders, whether to form these travel bubbles with select countries or not. Having said that, a lot of initiatives have been undertaken by the government, and I must compliment the Australian government for this monumental effort that they've undertaken to bring back the economy on its track. So there's been almost like $46 billion investment that has been made for direct government spending for tourism recovery. The country has allotted almost $800 million, that is close to almost 4,000 crores for Qantas, which is a premium carrier for the Australians, and a $3 billion funding by the Victorian government just to open up all the malls, the restaurants, the alpine resorts. There's a $50 million grant that has been given to rejuvenate the MICE and the business events community. There's a late night economy which has been planned in New South Wales so that the economy comes back to normal. There are grants given to regions like the Great Barrier Reef, regional tourism areas, so that the tourism operators in those regions come back and they're able to stand back on their feet. Most importantly, there's a COVID safety travel portal which is available on australia.com, which tells you the measures undertaken by each and every member of the tourism ecosystem and the do's and don'ts in terms of the the norms or the quarantine rules or the measures that each player has undertaken to ensure that their travelers have a great time. To answer your last question on visas, I guess the visa processing systems that the Department of Home Affairs have announced are one of the one of the simplest, I must say, because if you're traveling to Australia, you can apply for a visa sitting at home. So there are no biometrics required. You do not have to personally attend the High Commission for an interview. So there is social distancing which has been planned way back, maybe almost 3 years ago. And all the documents can be submitted and scanned and uploaded online directly onto the website. So it's absolutely safe. You do not have to spend enough time to appear for a personal interview or for your biometric for your biometric data. And so at this point of time, the High Commission is only processing visas on for those who want to travel again on immediate on compelling grounds, and they will reassess the situation as soon as the borders open, and we will be in touch with the industry, including yourself, to inform and communicate to the wider audience.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think very comprehensive information you've given about Australia. Well, friends, we have another very professional person, Mr. Florin, from CEO of Azerbaijan Tourism Board. He has 20 years experience. He has been representing Austria Tourism Board and international five-star luxury brands. He's also been a diplomat while he was in Moscow, attached to the Austrian embassy. Uh, well, in 2003, he returned to Vienna, joining the headquarters of Austrian Tourism Board. In 2006, he started his own consultancy, providing public bodies, including several government institutions, the European Union and United Nations. He supported a wide range of countries like Estonia, Greece, Vietnam, Bhutan, Hungary, Lithuania, just to name a few. And he led him to EU twining project between Austria and Azerbaijan to strengthen the latest tourism industry. Following the conclusion, serving as CEO of Pasha Travels, he became the CEO of Azerbaijan Tourism Board. Well, I think Azerbaijan is lucky to have a man with your experience. So over to you, sir.
Honorable Chairman, thank you very much for this kind introduction. Fellow colleagues, panelists, friends in India, it's a great pleasure to join today's panel discussion. Actually, it was my personal and our last big industry event at OTM in Mumbai this February. A tremendous and excellent event. We even did like a beautiful tea ceremony exchange with Chef Vinit on India, Azerbaijan, cultural similarities, a great networking dinner at OTM. So we are all looking very much forward coming back soon. India is one of our most important markets, an incredible 2019, plus 70%. The first year started, the first 2 months from India, plus 90%, and then it hit us very hard as all of us. And basically since then, since mid of March, the international borders in Azerbaijan are closed. Azerbaijan operates service flights for its nationals and people holding either residence or work permits in Azerbaijan. There is almost daily flights to Istanbul. There are weekly flights to Berlin, Dubai, and London. And basically, so there is an international connectivity, but not yet serving travelers who want to visit. We have developed a 4-phase recovery plan as the Azerbaijan Tourism Board. First phase lockdown. The lockdown ended. We are happy about that 2 weeks ago. So interstate regional borders opened. We've finally launched our Macera Yakhandade, the Adventure is Near campaign. I think you agree with me that none of the tourism boards ever looked at domestic campaigns that intensively as during the past months. But we also used these months to develop an upgraded safety and hygiene program, which is audited and licensed by PwC. Sahman in Azerbaijani stands for tidiness, and the English abbreviation for safety and hygiene methods and norms. Basically, it's a certification process, not only for hospitality partners, but also for travel, for tour agencies, for tour guides, so the entire value chain. And now, together with other government organizations, we are basically on a daily basis monitoring the service providers and also acting quick in the field with them to basically improve the service standards for this time. When the next phase would be gradual reopening, the third phase. Unfortunately, I can't tell you when that exact date is. I would love to. We are doing everything possible to working on protocols with other government authorities and how this opening happens. I think there is a daily change in new protocols, new testing methods. So actually, safety and health of locals goes first. Tourism comes second. But we hope that it's soon the case. And once we open, application for e-visa to Azerbaijan is the easiest thing. It actually takes you online, 3 steps. You pay with credit card, and as quick as within 3 hours, you have your e-visa to print at home for $24. And it was also basically communicated by the migration authorities that there will be a new e-visa available after the restrictions are lifted, which is a multiple entry visa. So this even provides more chances and opportunities for Indian travelers to visit.
Thank you very much. I think we are all waiting to visit Azerbaijan. I think It's quite interesting, and 90% growth before COVID-19 is a very, very good achievement. Well, friends, we have Mr. Yamamoto from the beautiful country of Japan. He started his career with Kanagawa Prefecture government. And is the background from Kanagawa?
Actually, not Kanagawa, but Yamaguchi Prefecture, hometown of former Prime Minister Abe.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was also director of Japan External Trade Organization, JETRO, for which he was stationed in Singapore for almost 3 years. After being involved with various government sectors, he joined JNTO 2017 as Deputy Manager in the Corporate Planning Department. Currently, he is the Executive Director for Tourism for India, market effective 1st July 2019. As Executive Director, he is responsible in overseeing India market while managing the development policy strategies to strengthen Japan reputation as a world-class tourism and travel destination. So over to you, Mr. Yamamoto.
Thank you very much, Chairman Dr. Agarwal.
Limited to the 5-6 minutes.
Okay.
So that we have some time for question answers. Otherwise,
okay.
We'll have no
Thank you
questions.
so much. Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you for inviting for this great event. It is very our pleasure. It is our pleasure to have an opportunity to have a speech here. Thank you so much. And as Dr. Agarwal mentioned, this backboard is Kintakyo Bridge in Yamaguchi Prefecture in western part of Japan. This is the hometown of former Prime Minister Abe. Yes. But 2 days ago, Prime Minister in Japan changed. Yes. But PM Modi-ji and PM Abe-ji have a very close relationship. And they build strong partnership between two countries. So now two countries are very tight. Yes. And India is a very important market for us to attract tourists. And the new Prime Minister, Mr. Suga, is a former cabinet spokesman, and he's a leader of international tourism. So I expect a very strong and a new strategy or policy for international travel. And I'd like to speak about the situation in Japan, about COVID-19, and then I'd like to talk about lift of the restriction of the border. And as many colleagues mentioned, COVID-19 hit Japan as a big impact. And it started to increase the patient from last February. And the first impact was from March to April. Number is very big, increased. And then government did a lockdown for 1.5 months. But end of June, lockdown finished, and there is a resume of economic activity. So people can travel across the border of prefectures after mid-June. And after mid-June to now, it is a second impact. Number of patients increased again, but number of patients decreased and almost settled down. So I can say it is the end of the second wave, second impact. Yes. Actually, I came back to Japan last month, and now stationed in Japan. But the people's life is almost same as before COVID-19. People commute to office and work, and people go to school, and go to restaurant, and go to sports event. So life is almost same. So I can say government of Japan can already control the COVID-19. And the next, I'd like to speak about restriction, end of restriction. Actually, from end of March, most of the international flight suspended, and Japan closed the gate of the border to India end of May. But actually, Japan gradually started to open the border. And we, Japan, start from 2 tracks. One is the business track, and the second is the residence track. So we prepare 2 tracks to open the countries. And we have each government have a discussion about the opening of the border with Thailand, Vietnam, Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan, Malaysia, Cambodia, Laos, and China, and Korea. And actually, today is the first day to open the country to Singapore as a business track. Regarding the business track, there is no quarantine. Of course, there is a testing of COVID-19, and the traveler must submit itinerary, but there is no quarantine. But regarding the residence track, there is a 14 days quarantine. But I expect this country also have the business track in the near future. And there is another news today. Indian government announced they created air bubble between Japan. But I don't have the detailed information, but I expect more people travel between two countries. But this, I think this air bubble is only business traveler and residence traveler. I'm not sure the detail, so we must check out more detailed information. But actually, Japan resuming international travel gradually. And regarding the visa procedure, it is under the control of the Ministry of Justice, so we don't have the detailed information. But today there is information about the air bubble, so maybe more detailed information coming up soon. Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention.
Chairman, your mic is on mute. Your mic.
So thank you. One important call had come in, so I put it on mute. So sorry for that. Occupational hazard. Well, we have Mr. G.V. Shirithar. He's the Regional Director, India, Middle East and South Asia for Singapore Tourism Promotion Board. Highly qualified in his capacity as Regional Director, Mr. Shirithar is responsible for covering STB's leisure, BT MICE, travel promotions, marketing development efforts, IMSA region. He works with travel and non-travel partners in the region to drive visitor traffic to Singapore for leisure, business, MICE, cruise, enrichment and experimental learning process. As Regional Director, he has led some major innovative marketing projects in India. These include Bollywood projects with Dharma Productions, Red Chilies Entertainment, musical collaboration with Indian Maestro, the first partnership with VH1 India by the National Tourism Organization for an English music video titled Unstoppable, and marketing tie-ups with leading brands like Ola and Paytm. Shirithar graduated with honors in sociology from the National University of Singapore in 1990 and holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in English language and philosophy. So thank you very much, Mr. Shirithar. As mentioned by our friend from Australia, that you are on the way to, and if you're traveling Singapore Airlines, you're on the way to Japan also.
Namaste, namaskar, vanakkam and vandanam. A very good meeting this is, and a privilege to be chaired by such a person as you, and Nishan batted off, and it's quite convenient to come as the last batsman. A few points I want to cover on behalf of Singapore Tourism. India is a very important market. It is the third largest source market for Singapore. In 2019, pre-COVID-19, we had welcomed 1.42 million visitors. It's a very important market for cruise. It is a very important market for incentives. Yeah. So in terms of situation in Singapore, I wanted to cover the fact that since the first infection started in Singapore in end January, we have gone through several phases. We had a circuit breaker and a lockdown phase, which was in the April, May, early June period. Then we had started a three-phased Safe Singapore approach. We are now currently in phase 2. So since about July, we have opened up many parts of the economy. In fact, all parts of the economy has opened up in some form or the other. We are in this safe transition phase. And we have taken up a lot of steps as the various countries have spoken. Safety and sanitation is so high on the agenda of the government. So today we have a Singapore Clean initiative together with several government agencies. Singapore Tourism Board is certifying various establishments across Singapore to the safety and sanitation and health requirements, making it safe for consumers or customers to come and visit those places. To date, we have certified 20,000 such establishments under the Singapore Clean Initiative. Domestic tourism, I mean, never in my life, even during the SARS period, there was a sort of a Singapore roars back kind of campaign, but domestic tourism in Singapore, and that's what we are currently doing. Singapore Rediscovers, where we are encouraging the locals, residents, and Singaporeans to go and visit attractions, take tours, experience the country. So a few things have happened on that front, and we are opening up. We are giving out Singapore Rediscovers vouchers to all Singaporeans and residents to partake in the experiences the country has to offer. Finally, let me talk about the opening up of borders. We are looking at, of course, like many countries, we are looking at the safety and health restrictions within the country first, and that's important. So reciprocal green lane arrangements have started with some countries for essential business travel, which is sort of a bubble wrap itinerary that the people or the travelers from this country can come into under the reciprocal green lane. So today we have reciprocal green lane arrangements with China, provinces, 6 provinces in China, with Brunei, Malaysia, South Korea. And in fact, today, September 18th, 2 things are happening. As Yasuki has stated, we have started reciprocal green lane arrangement with Japan. In fact, Japan, Singapore will be the very first country that they are having such an arrangement. So that's 1. 2, we have been slowly opening up. We have been looking at hybrid events for MICE. We have experimented with a group size of 50. We have moved it up to 250. And starting today, attractions can apply for more than 50% of operational capacity. When we started relaxing, it was 25%. It is going up to 50%. So we are opening slowly, and maybe this is a way of us getting ready for the travel restart from other countries when it happens. On the visa front, Singapore is still one of the countries where you can get visas within a 3 to 5 day horizon. Authorized visa agents across India allow quick access. There are no visas being processed now because we haven't opened up travel to India yet. But when the time comes, we will look at how we can work with the missions to see how we can continue to make convenient for the Indian travelers to come to Singapore through a very relaxed, hassle-free visa regime. That's it for now. Thank you, Dr. Subhash.
Thank you very much. I think it's been a wonderful interaction. Since I don't know whether the chat box is open or I can't see any questions, I think I'll do a rapid fire round. We have another 5 minutes. If anyone wants to add any point, which has been missed out, we'll start with Australia. You want to add anything to what you've said? Otherwise, I'll wind up.
I mean, I would just like to add that, the recovery process for this industry is going to be it's going to be a long-term process. And there are just a few suggestions, not from a Tourism Australia perspective, but what is it that the world or maybe various NTOs or various governments need to think of in order to revive this particular industry and this category. I guess the first thing that we need to do is to open up travel or set up these green lanes or travel bubbles for specific purpose of visitation. Like if countries could think about starting or commencing air travel or creating these travel bubbles for segments such as students, segments such as visiting friends and relatives, employment, business perspective, purpose. I guess these individuals can actually travel to a particular country and quarantine themselves for at least 14 to 15 days. Because their length of stay is usually longer. So this will help the aviation industry to come back. It'll help the airlines to commence flights, start reinstating their capacity back to certain countries. Right. And we'll have to begin at some point of time. The next is supporting the airlines as well, because there are a lot of measures which have been undertaken by either it's in the form of a government equity participation, non-equity cash flows. It could be something that the airports need to do in terms of the parking and the landing charges. It could be travel vouchers that Changi does so successfully. So I guess working with the airlines is really important, and we need to bring them back to normal. I guess these 2 things are extremely critical.
So you'd like to add from Azerbaijan 1 or 2 points? Just points.
Just one point to add. One point to add, Chairman, is I think it's important for governments, tourism boards, tourism authorities to support the industry partners and really to to run programs in marketing support, structural support, not to lose excellent resources and humans, and will be hard to get them back to the industry. And I think this is our homework. We're investing a lot in upgrade of infrastructure and services, so that basically when the borders reopen again, actually there will be a better experience, a more authentic experience for visiting.
Just wanted to know that e-visas have already started in Azerbaijan, or you're planning to start? E-visas
is suspended for the time being. evisa.gov.az is offline, so for the time being, it's impossible to apply for a visa.
You have any idea when they will open up or anything?
As soon as there is a plan for opening the borders, also the e-visa system will go live in an upgraded version. So also migration colleagues using the time to basically pimp up the system.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Yamamoto, you want to add anything? I think you can circulate the new information about the bubble between India and Japan, and we'll ensure that we circulate it. Anything else you want to add?
Okay. Yeah. Of course, we have some travel bubble, but now almost close the country to traveler. So now Japanese government try to support the travel industry in domestic economy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, but most of the industry companies are SME, small and medium size. So government subsidize these SME cash benefit and unsecured loan, and try to change the mind of the people. People's mind is shrinking.
Not that is very important.
Yeah. So government subsidize half of the price of the domestic travel now. Excellent. So government try to change the mind of the people.
That's important. Yes, sir. Mr. Sridhar, you want to add anything?
Yeah, just 2 points. One is united we stand. I think tourism is filled with creative, innovative, and passionate professionals who are sitting across the screen today. And I'm sure that united we will come out of this situation. And the second point is we prepare. We are not in the business of being reactive. We are not in the business of sitting back and doing nothing. So let us be proactive. Together, we will work with the industry. As and when, of course, health is going to be very important, but let us be ready. So I think let's get ourselves organized. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've had a very nice interaction. I would only add one or two points about India. You see, we have already opened up the domestic flights, as I mentioned. As of today, we have more than 8 million people who travel within India. 8 million people. And as far as the recovery rate is concerned, our recovery rate is one of the best in the world, because, you know, Indian doctors and nurses are world famous. If you remove them from UK and USA, we sort of do a great job there. So our recovery rate is 80%. And you see, as far as the death rate is concerned, if you take the population of 1.3 billion people, it is less than 1%. And since the rapid testing has started, there also, you know, it is only 8% people out of the people who are being tested are being found positive, which is a very low figure when the recovery rate is 80%. So, friends, I think the air bubbles are starting fast. The metro in the major cities has already started maintaining all protocols. And we are hopeful that by the end of, October, beginning to middle of October, I think most of the air bubbles from India's side will be opened up, depending on the, other country. And as far as student traffic is concerned, and resident traffic or dependent residents is concerned, I think the other day only a lot of students have going, and our company also organized 1 or 2 charters to the Central European countries and also to UK. UK, there is no quarantine. There is a home quarantine for students in their hostel or anywhere where they go, and even COVID test is not there. Similarly, in the US, thousands of Indian students are traveling to the US, and also dependent, passport holders. For example, if someone is working in the US, his wife or his children want to go, so they are allowed to travel on these bubbles. And I'm sure in Singapore also, dependent passport holders or residents who are stuck here are allowed, or students are also allowed. I don't know.
No, I think generally the circumstances are such that only the repatriation flights are on. So on very exceptional basis, then other travel is allowed.
And you have to register at the respective high commissions or embassies, as the case with all repatriation flights is concerned.
Yes, yes.
I think we've had a very nice interactive session, and thank you very much. The email of all the panelists is there with OTM, and also with all the buyers who are participating and who have missed the event because even there were back-to-back appointments with a lot of buyers. So OTM is recording the event. It will be available, I think, on YouTube and other platforms, and it will be circulated also. And if anyone has any questions with any of the panelists, please send an email, and I'm sure we'll respond to you. Thank you very much, and stay positive. Thank you. Yeah. Well, let the experts from Singapore, Australia, and Azerbaijan and Japan say.
I guess
I'm always positive.
You would possibly need a crystal ball to answer that particular question. But initial estimates, which the airlines have predicted, or maybe what some of the national tourism organizations have predicted, is that to come back to 2019 levels, it'll possibly take another 2 to 4 years, and that's not a good sign. But as Sridhar mentioned, if we all stand unitedly, if we all take that onus and that responsibility of bringing this category back to what it was in 2019, in 2021, I guess we can all make it happen. And I'm realistically optimistic about it, because I believe that this country has seen a lot of adversities. We've seen terrorist attacks, we've seen bomb blasts, we've seen natural calamities, and we've come out of each and every adversity the very next day. So I firmly believe that the moment the borders are open, even if you travel today or walk down the streets of Mumbai or Delhi, you'd see it's business as usual. So the moment you open up, aviation, start aviation connectivity, open international borders, Indians will certainly travel in huge numbers.
Anyone else wants to add anything?
Azerbaijan, unfortunately, no glass ball, but we estimate that it will take roughly also 3 to 4 years, while it will not be linear. But 2021. Hopefully, I know everyone likes a percentage, 15-20%. I think is very optimistic, and the further it goes, and the vaccine is available, I think we will see a more progressive growth rate over the next 2-3 years. But overall, if we are back to 2019 pre-COVID in 3 to 4 years, I think that is hopefully realistic.
Anyone wants to add anything further?
We also think about the pre-COVID situation will come back soon. It is very good, but I guess it needs a few years.
What about you?
There is the Olympic Games next year, so I hope tourists come back soon.
Thank you.
Numbers, whether it is 20% or 50% recovery in 2021, I think that's one consideration for us to have. But I think the results is what we can make of it, because things will change. Cost of traveling is going to be higher. People are going to be a lot more concerned about safety and health. So what we as travel intermediaries, as NTOs, can combine and work together will also determine the result. So it is crystal ball gazing. Everybody is not sure. But I think one thing we can collectively do is get ready, because we will push the results together.
I agree with you. I think on that positive note, because you see, we have to understand one thing, that you see, the fear of this disease will cause more damage than the disease itself. So we have to spread, all of us in the tourism industry have to give people hope and have to have a very positive attitude. And we have to learn to live with this disease. This disease is not going to go. Even after the vaccine is discovered, I think Russia claims to have discovered it, Israel, India, the Oxford and US and China. I think we are all on the verge of, announcing our vaccines. But to vaccine people will also take time. So whatever it is, we have to learn to live with this disease like we are living with tuberculosis, which is more infectious, or the common cold, which there is no cure till now, and nor is there any vaccine for a common cold. But we live with it because it's not as dangerous. I believe SARS was more dangerous than this. So we have to learn to live with this disease, and all of us in the tourism industry must, as rightly mentioned by Mr. Sridhar, that we must make all the efforts to restart the economy, to restart travel, to influence our respective governments to open up as soon as possible, because unless we open up, we can't remain locked down forever. You see, we have to open up, and the sooner we open up, I think the better it is for the economy of all our countries, and the better it's for all of us. So thank you very much. Is there any other question, or we have run out of time? Shivani?
Cancelled, even though it gets confirmed at first. So why is it getting cancelled in the air bubble? That is one of the concerns from our travel partners. Nishant,
you'd like to?
Yes.
I guess the airline who's cancelling those flights would be, the airline representative of that particular company would be the appropriate person to answer this question. But in case you can flick it across to us and send us the details, we'll be happy to escalate it with our respective airline partner and revert back to you.
Any other question is there? Because I can't see the chat box. Shivani, any other question? So
just one more question. Sorry, sir. One more question. So one of our travel friends want to know that if and when we open up international tour, how crucial will road journeys be, considering the fact that air travel is restricted now? Do you think road journeys can become a new thing in travel?
Road journeys is the only answer for the time being, at least in India. And whichever countries, for example, already in the weekends from Delhi, Neemrana and the Grand Bharat and all these hotels are absolutely full in the weekends, because people are so fed up, being imprisoned in their homes, right? This is going to bounce back with a vengeance, right? And what we have seen, even near all the metros and all the cities, road travel has increased substantially. And even the tourist taxis and all are maintaining now, partitions in between the driver and the, all those things. So initially, domestic travel and regional travel will be the first to open up. And then short haul travel and then long haul travel, because that is the only thing. And right now, domestic travel has already started in India. Does anyone agree with this? So fine. Anything else? Shivani?
No more questions for any of the panelists. Thank you for joining us here today. It was a great and really good informative discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.